fellow romance readers, I'm Amy.
And I'm Sarah, and this is Post-Book Depression. You know that feeling you get when you finish a good book that you didn't want to end?
Have you finished a book and just weren't ready to move on from the story and its beloved characters? You find yourself needing just a little more? This multi-trope romance podcast gives you the opportunity to dig deeper with us into books we love as we discuss all the reasons we can't move on.
Feeling chatty? You can continue the conversation with us on Instagram at Post-Book Depression Podcast or on Facebook in our Post-Book Depression discussion group.
We would be so grateful if you would subscribe to our podcast and take a moment to leave a review.
Are you ready? Let's discuss.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Amy.
And I'm Sarah, and today we're going to be discussing Birthday List by Devney Perry.
It is our podcast's third birthday. Happy birthday, Sarah.
Happy birthday.
Which is why we chose this book to celebrate today. The first few minutes, we're going to do a brief review of this story, and then we are going to shift into a deeper book discussion that's going to include lots of spoilers. But don't worry, as always, we're going to let you know before we do shift over into that deeper book discussion.
That's right. So before we dive in, Amy, tell us just a little bit about Birthday List.
When a young woman's husband dies suddenly, she sets out to work on his annual birthday bucket type list. When she sets out to accomplish taking a karate class as one of the list items, she does not expect to run into the police officer who brought the tragic news that rocked her world to her doorstep 5 years ago at this class. This is a story of adventure, taking chances, and starting over. Sarah, what did you think about the birthday list?
I want to say that I felt very sad throughout, given the context of the story, but I wasn't. I was actually very uplifted. It reminded me so much of Amy because she does a birthday list.
I do.
Every single year. So it just, I guess I associated that kind of idea, concept with you, and it just kind of made me happy. I will say it's a very unique take on a grieving process and overcoming grief and working through that. I really like Devney Perry's writing, and I loved this story. What did you think?
Of course, I loved it. I love a good list. I especially love a birthday list as someone who makes my own each year to celebrate the year. I have different goals, and so I really, really related to this story in that way, and I felt like, just like you said, it's a great way. Not great, but it's an interesting twist to the grieving process and still getting to, live through the memories of her husband through things that he wanted to accomplish. And I really enjoyed her getting to do that with this new man in her life and have him be a part of that.
It was so good.
Let's get into our ratings. Angst.
It was just a 1.
Same.
Yeah.
Devney Perry's not traditionally a heavily angsty author to me, and I appreciate that about her writing style. Humor.
Okay, I just put like 0.25 because I didn't really...
I did 0.75 to 1. I'm going to stick with 0.75. There was some chuckling, lighthearted moments, but it's not overly humorous. Spiciness.
I put like a 1.5.
I did 1.75.
Yeah. Some
description and frequency led me to that, but not overly so. Tears.
You think it would be higher, but I only did a 1.
Same. Yeah. I didn't cry, but the premise is sad.
Yes, that's it right there, what you said.
Overall.
This was a 4.5. I love this story.
I gave it 4.25. I love a good adventure list, as I've already said. Yeah. I love making lists, so this story was right up my alley. That concludes a spoiler-free quick review of this story. Now we're going to shift into a deeper book discussion that's going to include lots of spoilers. So if you haven't read this story, go check it out and then come back and join us on the deeper discussion. We would love to connect with you on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Post-Book Depression Podcast, on Facebook in our Post-Book Depression discussion group, and you can also email us at postbookdepressionpodcast@gmail.com. It's our birthday, friend! 3 years!
I know.
Let's dig into this birthday-themed book.
Let's do it.
In the opening scene, it does start a little bit on a heavy note. Womp womp. We meet Jamie, Poppy's new husband. They've only been married 1 year.
I know.
And we already love him and his enthusiasm for life. He loves to celebrate life. I love to celebrate life through a birthday list too, so I was already vibing with Jamie right at the top of this story. He starts talking about his list and how he wants to make a birthday list so that every year, moving forward into the future, he has a bucket list type item that he's going to accomplish. And lo and behold, that does not last very long. She gets a knock on her door and the very unfortunate news that Jamie has been tragically murdered. Let's begin our chat.
Man, this was rough because he has the energy of like a puppy that you just love. I loved Jamie's personality, and in another story we could totally fall in love with him and he would be book boyfriend.
I think so too.
Just material, perfect. But you're right, he dies. Sad birthday.
Sad birthday.
I know. It's our party. We can cry if we want to. So yeah, he's shot. And this is really hard because Poppy feels so much guilt because she didn't want to have tequila shots. She wanted to have a grown-up party where they had margarita. He went to the liquor store to pick up
at her request,
her request for more adult cocktails. And he's shot and killed.
In a robbery.
Oh,
and in this opening scene, it is actually Officer Cole, who comes to deliver this tragic news to her. And I really felt connected to him right at the top of this story because he stays with her while she calls her brother to give this horrible news, and while they call Jamie's family to notify him, he stays with her and is kind of a calming presence for her in such a very horrific and tragic time in her life. As you can imagine, the memories of Cole being there are etched into her memory. She will never forget it. So of course he is connected to a really heavy time in her life. Fast forward 5 years later to the present. I gotta say I was thankful that 5 years had passed because I was already loving Jamie and I needed some time to pass for her to grieve. 5 years is a long time.
But it's really not because they were very young. She's only 29.
They were.
So when you think about it, it's really even more tragic because he was 24, 25 years old.
Yes.
So they were just babies when they were young and married. So
it's been 5 years and she is making the decision that she wants to do Jamie's list. She pulls out his birthday list, this little journal that he has, and she's wanting to work through this list. And one of her goals is to accomplish everything in this list in a year as a way to say goodbye, move on a bit, and move on with her life and honor his memory as well and the things that he wanted to do in the course of his life. She feels like she can accomplish everything in a year. One of the things that's on the list that he had set up for her was for her to open up her own restaurant. So she uses some of the life insurance money that she got from his life insurance policy to help her fund opening the Mason Jar.
How cute is this?
Talk about this restaurant. I am in love with this restaurant and I want it to exist in real life.
I do too. And I had to Google Mason Jar Mills because
How many did you find? Because I thought about doing that and I didn't. And I'm curious to know.
So I found several. I found some like kind of a baked ziti style. Is
it a lot of pasta? Because she did the chicken pot pie, which I can see
that's
that
a common one. Chicken pot pie, salad in a jar, the dessert galore.
Oh, I'm sure the desserts.
I was blown away, but all I kept thinking was, I'm gonna need like 5 of those little baby mason jars. Those things are tiny. I kept
thinking that too.
I kept trying to picture an entire meal and how that would work, because I have those little mason jars at home and I'm like, that's not packing a lot. That's like an appetizer, you know.
Are you talking about the little small 2-inch tall ones? So there's also the larger, like the honey jars.
But how are you putting a pot pie that
I imagine it's a lot of like the mixture with the crust on top.
That's not a crust. That's not enough crust for me.
Well, me either, but for a mason jar, that's all you're going to get. Or maybe you do it in layers. You do some mix with the crust, the mix and the crust.
I don't know. Work for a pot pie that I could think of.
She only like microwaves them to warm them back up.
Well,
so she's already
cooked
in the
everything.
Oven. Oh, okay.
They just heat them up for 5 minutes. They pre-cook and then they warm. So unless you want to wait longer, it was super cute. I was just trying to figure out how many meals realistically you can have. I need to do some more digging. I was very interested in this idea. Me
too. And such a cute restaurant. One of my favorite things from the very first day, technically not the first day, it's the day before her first day, is Randall. He
is a hoot.
curmudgeon-y old man who comes in and stakes his claim on this bar stool at the bar, and that's his spot, even though he's not coming back because the food is just mediocre.
And she spelled Mason wrong.
And she spelled Mason wrong, even though it's how she spells her last name. I loved Randall so much.
I did too.
Just a hoot. And then, of course, he comes back literally every day in his front row right there in his seat.
I like later on that he fights people for his
me too.
seat. Like, it becomes a big battle, and that I would want a customer like him.
Me too. The next item on the birthday list that she chooses to cross off is taking a karate class. Mm-hmm. And this is where things really set the stage for her and Cole's relationship to start building. She walks into this karate class and she's fully prepared to attend one class, one night, get it over. She can check that off the old list. And lo and behold, she runs into Cole and has a moment of inner panic as she is thrown back 5 years to when he shows up on her doorstep. Let's talk about this very unfortunate second meet cute.
Well, they have a stare-off for a second. But he kind of has a little bit of, not a freak out, but when he goes to get ready for class, he's thinking, she's surely going to be gone when I come back out. And she's not. Mm-hmm. She's still there. And so he trains with her. I was very conflicted in my feelings for this because I thought, how are we going to move past
every time she sees him and not think about Jamie?
But when they touch at one point and there's a zing.
I love a good zing.
I know. But man, Devney Perry, I was just like, girl, the man should calm down. She's a grieving widow. But I was like, dude, you're at class, keep calm and karate on or something. I don't know. He was very attracted to her, if you know what I'm saying. And I thought, cool it, mister. She's there to fight and break boards and hi-ya. So anyway.
They have this really awkward encounter, and she obviously remembers him. He, of course, remembers her. Mm-hmm. They train, as you said.
Yes.
One of the things that Poppy has really been steadfast on in the 5 years since Jamie's murder is her determination to find Jamie's killer. They still have not found the killer. That's something that's been kind of haunting her for the last 5 years. And she goes back to see this detective that's been in charge of the case for the last 5 years regularly. She goes to visit him. Of course, every time he tells her there's nothing new, there's no new information. From Cole's perspective, when he witnesses her coming in to talk to this detective, whom is pretty lazy on the job from Cole's perspective, he's thinking to himself, this is 100% a cold case and should not still be open. There's zero chance we're going to find Jamie's killer. And the fact that this is still open, and he feels like the detective is more or less leading Poppy on for a hopeful ending when there more than likely will not be one. It's in this moment that he makes the decision, upon her asking, that he will look into the case. He's not making any promises, but he's going to look into it, and he feels like he will be more diligent in the efforts than the officer who has been assigned to the case. We haven't mentioned yet, but Cole's father is the chief of the department. So he works hand in hand with his father in the department. And one thing that his father is adamant on is that he become the police chief when he retires in a few years. And this is not what Cole wants. So that's going to bring up a little bit of tension towards the middle and end of the story. But speaking of Cole's parents, the next thing on Poppy's list is to learn how to play the ukulele.
Yeah.
And they're not easy to play. I actually have one sitting here in the recording room where we're at. It's so cute and I love it. I can't play it. My husband plays it. But I love listening to people play the ukulele, and I just can't imagine learning how to play it. It's such a little tiny neck and
I know.
all of that. But she immediately falls in love with Mia, the instructor of the ukulele class. And it's not until after the class that we learn that Mia is Cole's mom. Let's break down this scene.
I loved this scene.
Oh yeah, I knew you would.
First of all, I love his mom, Mia. She is so delightful. I feel like all mother-in-laws should be like her. She's just warm and kind of a free spirit, which I just love about her. The more we learn about her character, I just want to hang out with her all the time. When Cole comes in and she realizes that is his mom, and she's thinking, how many times am I going to run into this man? I ran into him at karate. I ran into him at the station. Now I'm taking lessons with his mom. At this point, you're kind of just embrace it. They clearly wants you guys to be together.
And not just lessons, she invites, because Cole's coming over for family dinner. And of course, Mia is, telling Poppy, you have to stay for dinner now.
Yeah. So she does, but Cole picks up that she is still kind of sitting in her grief. Mm-hmm. She has not taken off her wedding rings. And
she's very much in survival mode.
She is. And, I have to say, friend, I don't like stories where a spouse dies and somebody moves on very quickly. I find that very hard. Mm-hmm. I also am struggling with somebody who is 29 and they were only married for a year. They're so young and they cannot move on.
Yeah.
And that to me is heartbreaking because I just think you're so young. You're going to spend the rest of your life alone.
And Jamie wouldn't have wanted that for her.
No. And it's just, she's stuck. And it's so sad. But I love Cole because he's very perceptive.
Oh,
and
yes.
he picks up on that. And so he kind of sits back at dinner to kind of help her relax and not engage too much. Now, he's still polite, but he wants her to be at ease with him being there since they keep having these run-ins.
And he's very much interested in her.
Oh, yeah.
But I love how respectful he is and how patient he is with her through this whole story about just letting her be on her own timeline, not pushing anything between them, allowing her to breathe and find some peace and just living a little bit. Let's shift over to Cole. He, we've talked about how he's a police officer and he has a new rookie on the job. His name's Terrence. Terrence is struggling. He drives up and sees Terrence has pulled this old lady over and she's giving him the what for and you can't give me a ticket. On the side of the road. So Cole pulls in to offer some support, and after they send this woman on the way after threatening her a little bit, Cole decides to go on a ride along with Terrence, and they're having this conversation and they end up pulling somebody over for speeding, and he notices a fake ID in his glove box. And one of the things that Cole does is he gives this kid what he calls a once. This is your one shot to do better next time. And he goes and explains this whole once thought process to Terrence and what it means, and how somebody once gave him an opportunity as a reckless kid who made some not smart choices to have an opportunity. And it was because of that he was able to successfully get on the police force. If he hadn't been, and he'd had a record, he wouldn't have been able to land the career that he has. This is a pivotal moment in the story because it's going to come to play later on in the story as we move into Poppy's husband's investigation. Mm-hmm. One of the birthday list items that really made me smile is the one where she has to say yes to everything in a day.
Yeah.
Have you ever done this with your kids, had a yes day?
No, but there's so many ideas from this list that I
Jennifer
want to
Garner does this, and I love to get inspiration from her. I've never done a yes day on my birthday list either. I should. I feel like it would be harder as an adult to say yes to everything. But I love the idea of it. And I love how her restaurant staff is really playing this up and making her say yes to getting help and not being at the restaurant all the time and allowing them to do more. And Cole walks in on this. He's coming in to have lunch. He started coming into the restaurant a little more frequently. And he's starting to pick up on what is going on. And that's when he asks her about the birthday list. And she opens up. Let's talk about this scene.
I love the scene. I love her sister-in-law, Molly, which, well, I guess they're not really sister-in-laws anymore. She and her brother were married. They're divorced. And she's kind of the one that's really, she recognizes Cole will be good for her and kind of helps for him to pick up on. She has to say yes. So this scene makes me so happy because she kind of just has to let the cat out of the bag and she has to tell him. I love that he kind of makes it, she gets a little nervous because he's like, anything I ask? I love when he asks for 2 desserts. It was the best.
Not and the direction you thought he was going to go.
No, but she, kind of takes a breath of relief, It's such a flirty scene and such a fun scene. And you can tell she has attraction to him. Mm-hmm. She just doesn't know what to do with that because she's feeling guilty when she does, which is so sad. I can't even imagine, because I imagine that's a real emotion that you do feel.
Sure.
I love, though, that he kind of can tease her in that moment. But
and then volunteers to help her with the list. I really liked that as well.
Too.
You talked about how she's fighting her attraction to Cole and her struggle with guilt. Let's talk just a little bit about these feelings that she's having and why she's pushing away from Cole.
She doesn't want to forget Jamie. She has already thought in her head that Cole is way more attractive than Jamie was. Even though Jamie was attracted to her, Cole is on another level of attractiveness, and that she feels guilty for that because she feels like they're comparing. There are certain things that Cole will do that she'll think, well, Jamie would have done this or something, and she's comparing, and she doesn't want to get into the comparison game between these two, but she feels guilty for liking Cole. She feels guilty for wanting to kiss Cole. She feels guilty for every feeling that she's having towards him because she doesn't want to move on. And I feel like a lot of that guilt stems from she feels like it is her fault that he died because she asked him to go to the liquor store. Mm-hmm. And so therefore she rejects any idea of moving on. How can I move on when
she bears
my
the responsibility in
that
her
he's
mind.
gone, which is really unhealthy, but we're human. So
we are. I respect Cole so much as he takes a step back. He's not very pushy with her and allows her the space that she needs to process through the feelings of guilt and struggling with having a relationship with him and the feelings that she's having. He's obviously picking up on her cues that she's given. They kind of have this push and pull dynamic, but I really respect the fact that he's allowing her to come around on her own terms and her own timeline as she works through that. One of the things for me that was really sad and hard to read was Poppy's struggling relationship with Jamie's parents. Mm-hmm. As someone who is very close to my in-laws and my in-law family, of course, I've been with my husband for more than 2 decades, so there's a lot of history there, and I can't say that it would be quite this way because of the extensiveness that we've had, but they don't want to be around Poppy. They see her and they see hurt. They see their son's loss and the tragedy that became of his life, and so they just don't want to be a part of her life, and that's really hard for her, and she's struggling to make a connection with them and still try and keep a relationship with them when they just push her away.
Which is so interesting to me because she's so faithful to Jamie. Mm-hmm. But it's not his entire family. I mean, it's his parents are pushing her away. His mom cries anytime he's mentioned, but she has a close relationship with his grandpa, Jimmy. She sees him regularly. I love him too.
I love him too.
His character is a lot of fun, especially when he's dyeing his hair pink. That was the best.
Which we later learned was because of Randall.
I know. Those two together are so funny. And then he shaves it. That's funny. I really feel like... Can we jump forward just a smidge?
Sure.
I really feel like his family is completely unfair because they don't want her to do his birthday list. They feel like that's not okay. They get very upset about it. And I don't know if it's that she just never told them or that they feel like she shouldn't, but I want to say, she was his wife. If Dustin had something like this, I would totally do this. I love the idea of doing that, and I think it's a healing process for her.
Yeah.
When she goes later on to get his truck and restore it, I was just shocked at how they acted. Not surprised because I've known people to be this way and they would absolutely act this way, but for her character, I'm like, for somebody who loved your son so well.
And how they made assumptions about her and Cole, because Cole goes with her to pick up the truck and helps her get that loaded. When they see, he just basically puts his hand on the small of her back to guide her forward, and his mom lets out this audible gasp.
Yeah. After her kind of false, fake reception where she hugs her and she hasn't been friendly with her at all.
And just seeing that scene play out through Poppy's point of view and how saddened I was for her, she is recognizing that this is goodbye.
Right.
For Jamie's parents and her relationship together. Even Jamie's brother is there and is, putting some distance between them. That was really hard. I really, really liked how when she got into the truck with Cole and he says, "Are you okay?" and she said no. And that's when she broke down. I liked that she felt safe enough with him to do that and open up and be honest and say, no, I'm not okay. And of course, Cole jumping in to help her and take care of her and bring her some peace of mind.
Yeah.
As Poppy and Cole's relationship starts to take off a bit, he's obviously still keeping an eye on Jamie's case and doing some investigative work. He's realizing that the officer that was in charge of it was a rookie when he started. He didn't have a lot of training, so he did things that you would have expected him to do. As he's taking on this case, his father allowed him to do this under a couple of conditions. One, he can't be the primary person on that because now that he has some interest in Poppy, they don't want any of this to be called into question from the attorneys and things. He didn't want to compromise the case, essentially. But also that he has to do it on his own time in the initial part. And then he does allow him more time. Well, in doing this, he's watching hours and hours and hours and hours of footage from the shopping center video cameras and all of the feeds and looking at license plates. It's a lot of work. And as he's working through this, there's a scene where Jamie and Poppy are together while he's restoring the truck, that he has laid his weapon on the counter and she picks it up. And as they're talking about that, he realizes when she asks if she can shoot it or things like that, he realizes that the gun would be too heavy for her and the recoil would literally send her hands up over her head. And he has this epiphany in that moment about how the shooter in Jamie's case did have that recoil and that reaction. And he realizes in this moment that it had to be a woman.
Yeah.
Through all of this, it kind of gives him a little break in the case and they start, looking at different angles of this, which I really like. But in the meantime, they're starting to build this relationship together. They're taking things slow with her. They're getting ready to go out on a date. In doing so, he runs into somebody from his high school that's this real sleazeball. And as Poppy comes over to him, he introduces Poppy as his girlfriend. The inner dialogue of Poppy, of course, is to go into a spiral. She gives the silent treatment in this whole 2 or 3 hour road trip to wherever they're going on this date. And he finally calls her out and addresses it. I love that he gets right to the point on that. Me too. And she opens up about how that was a big step. That was too fast. Let's talk briefly just about the reaction that she had to this.
I feel bad for him because I almost felt like she overreacted, but at the same time, I'm not walking in her shoes and I don't know. There's no timeline for grief. So I don't think it would be fair to say, you should be over him by now. As a reader, I was just like, calm down. Like, you're dating him.
Well, and to not say anything for 3 hours in the car with him seemed a little immature.
Yeah, but people communicate different. I'm finding out that some people just don't say what they feel.
That's true.
I don't understand that.
That's true.
But some people just can't communicate. So I'm more like Cole. Like, let's just talk about the elephant in the room, shall we?
Yeah.
So I was happy that he called her out on it.
Eventually, she does open up to him and ends up asking him to attend her friend's wedding. And you talked earlier about the guilt that she has and the feelings of struggling in her mind that she's feeling while she's starting to like Cole and the attraction that she has. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because you've already talked about it a little bit, but it's in this whole trip down there that she is constantly comparing him to Jamie in her mind. Everything that they do, she's comparing him to Jamie. I especially liked the scene where they start dancing because she's realizing that Jamie would not have danced with her this way. This is Cole in this moment, and she's trying to live in this moment and enjoy the memories that she's making with Cole. Let's chat about this quickly.
I thought it was interesting because, Jamie's kind of energetic and would not be slow paced with her as far as dancing and stuff. So I like that she has that realization. I also do kind of feel like this aids to helping her through her grieving processes. She has put Jamie on this pedestal and she's made him out that he is perfection. And he's not. Yeah. And she's picking up on all these areas where Jamie was a flawed human being. And their marriage wasn't always perfect. And not everything Jamie did was perfect. I don't like that she compares, but I do like that in the comparison game that she has kind of playing in her own mind, that she comes to that realization of, wow, I really put him on a pedestal, and that's not okay. And also, they're two different people. I can love Jamie and I can care for Cole because they're two separate people.
Absolutely.
And I'm happy when she starts having these little epiphanies because it kind of gets the ball rolling to the relationship that we're wanting them to have.
One of the things on the birthday list is to hike Glacier National Park. Mm-hmm. This friend, she wears boots that are too small for her. Mm-hmm. She doesn't say anything and she's limping along. They're not quite to the top and she is ready to give up. This scene, I had the biggest dorky grin on my face the whole time because Cole doesn't push her to walk the rest of the way, and you're almost there. You might as well just go. Friend, he picks her up and carries her the rest of the way and then carries her all the way down the freaking mountain.
He's such a good man because he tells her we can be done, we can go, and then she says, no, we'll turn around, it's fine, and he reassures her, no, you need to do this, we're going to do this. But wow, he's a good man because you know he's got to be hurting.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care how light she is. Yeah, that's hard. Hiking a mountain is hard. To do it with somebody on your back. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When they get down and they go to the restaurant to eat dinner. Uh-huh. Let's talk about this scene.
I thought it was interesting, and I was wondering throughout the whole thing, I thought, she has her rings on. They're going on these dates, and she has her wedding rings on. This has to be so... Cole has to be thinking, when is it going to be my turn? Mm-hmm. Am I always going to live in the shadow of Jamie? I love that this bartender waitress says something about her husband, and she says, oh, no, it's not my husband. And the bartender is like, oh, okay. No, and she feels like, no, I'm not married, and my husband died. And I am happy that she kind of had this wake-up call moment of, take your rings off.
Yeah.
You're trying to move on with Cole. You want to move on with Cole. Why are you still wearing your rings?
Later in the hotel room, because Cole doesn't address it right away. Mm-mm. He notices. He notices right away because this is a huge milestone. It's back in the hotel room after they've been intimate for the first time with each other. It's then that he asks her, do you want to talk about why you took your rings off? Mm-hmm. Friend, melt my heart. I love this man so much, and just how delicate he is with her and knowing what she needs when she needs it, and being a listening ear for when she's ready to talk about it. I think if he had pressed her in the moment, that wouldn't have been the right time when she first did it. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until later that he found this opening to ask her about that. Oh, I freaking love him.
I love something else that we haven't really addressed, but he's super patient with her, especially when it comes to the kissing for the first time. Mm-hmm. And
he wants it to be her choice.
He wants it to be her choice. And I love that. And it's also in that scene too, before they're intimate together. I'm so thankful that afterwards she did not feel guilty and that she is just in that moment with him. It made me so happy for not only her, but for him too, because if they had written it that way, the angst rating would have gone way up.
One of the birthday list items that I just found a delight in was the fact that they had to pull a fire alarm and that Poppy and Jimmy were adamant on doing it. The fact that they do and they get arrested and he has to rescue them is a whole nother level of comic to me. Mm-hmm. But what really made me just so giddy, and I mean, obviously there was an arrest record involved, so it's not that comical, but this side of it, when he said, it didn't have to be an actual building with people in it. If you just said so, I could have found some with the fire department that you could have pulled. Which,
here's the thing. I thought that the whole time. I'm like,
yes.
You're a cop. Can't you just ask a firefighter buddy that you guys work close together. Can't you just ask somebody? I was wondering that the entire time. They just kept saying, it's a felony, it's a felony. I didn't know you would go to jail if you pulled one.
I didn't either.
Is it?
I know now.
Is that accurate?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't pull one unless I needed to.
Yeah.
I didn't know I would go to jail if I chose to. So really glad that I don't give in to temptation. Man, my husband's so lucky he's never been arrested. He always wants to push buttons and touch things. He's like the character Castle, if you ever watch that show. He's always touching things. That's my husband. Everywhere we go, he touches things. So I'm surprised he hasn't pulled a fire alarm. He hasn't, but I'm surprised he hasn't.
Cole has finished the restoration of Jamie's truck and brings it to her, and it's exactly as she imagined it would be. It was exactly how Jamie had envisioned it to be as well. The next thing on the birthday list is to give a car to someone in need. Let's talk about Belle.
Okay.
This girl that's come into the restaurant, we've noticed her, we meaning Poppy and friends, and us along for the ride. She obviously doesn't have any money to buy food, but she's been neglected. You could tell she's underweight. Let's talk about Belle.
I knew that it was going to be the daughter of the cashier who was shot when Jamie was killed, because it was at the liquor store, the cashier and Jamie were the two that were murdered. But she asked to find out about the child of the cashier. So it was shortly after that we start seeing Belle in the restaurant, and I thought,
because up until that point we hadn't seen Belle.
Yeah.
I was on the same train of thought.
I knew that it was going to be her daughter. I was surprised with Belle's story, that when she finally sits down and kind of in a very clever manner gets her to eat, to try things, and discovers that she's pregnant. And because she won't drink her coffee, and she makes her hot chocolate, and that was really sad to me. I was heartbroken for her. But when she takes her home that night, convinces her to let her have a ride, I didn't see it being so dark, that she's been living with her dad and he's an addict and his dealer has assaulted her, and that's how she's pregnant. She's terrified of him. I love that Poppy jumps right on that.
Oh, me too.
Nope. We're going to get you out of this. Like, immediately. Not, okay, I'll get you in a couple of days, but tonight.
Right now.
You're going tonight. We're leaving. We're going to go pack a bag. The courage that it took to do that was remarkable.
And I love that the grandma was so receptive and open to receiving her.
Which it did make me curious, why didn't she get her from the beginning? But I guess if there's a parent, they're going to go to that first. But
yeah.
I love that she gives her the truck.
Oh, me too.
It just
came full circle.
I know, it really did. And I did think though the same thing. Like, you're gonna let a 16-year-old girl drive 12 hours and she's pregnant. It's late, because like it's late at night.
It is.
It all worked out. It's fine.
It works out. When Cole comes and gives the name of the person, the daughter, that's when we make the connection that's who it was. He is, making some recommendations about her coming to live with him at his house. And she's finding that staying in the house where her and Jamie lived is too much. And all she has is memories of Jamie there. And she needs a fresh start. And she's basically been staying with Cole, but she wants to make it more permanent at his invitation. And so she's home packing up the house. And it's then that she has this moment of foreboding, feeling a bit of deja vu as he comes to her door, just like he did those years ago with the news of Jamie's death. And he is here to tell her that he has found the killer, but also that he is responsible indirectly by allowing this person to have a once. Let's talk about this scene.
That was rough. When he said that he was the one that was responsible for Jamie's murder, I was shocked, and I was trying to rack my brain, how, what happened, because obviously he didn't kill Jamie, but what transpired that he thinks that he's the reason why. And when you find out it's this young girl that he let go, that she assured him she wouldn't mess up anymore, and she's the one that shot him
because of a gang involvement.
Yeah,
gang
which was
involvement.
So interesting to me, that the officer who's super lazy, he can get confessions out of anybody.
Yes, that
was
was
the highest
impressive
confession. So that was interesting. I'm like, well, know your strengths, and maybe you just stay there.
Yeah.
But he gets her to confess because she's trying to say, my boyfriend didn't do it, and then it turns out she did. How did you feel that Poppy doesn't talk to him for a few days?
I didn't like it. As someone who is placing guilt on herself for being responsible for him being in the liquor store to begin with, she should understand the weight of that guilt and the pressure that he's feeling. I understand that she needed to wrap her head around that news. That is really big news. One, just processing the fact that Jamie's killer had been found and the sense of reprieve and relief that she feels in that. But I didn't like that she waited 3 days to come around to him. How did you feel?
I didn't like it because she said, I never thought you were the one to blame. Just like, I'm not the one to blame.
Yes.
And my whole thing was, well, you couldn't wrap up what you needed to do in a few hours. Like, I understand having a few hours to process and overnight, whatever, but 3 days. I'm like, how long does it take to print an album? Jeez. Which is what she was doing and packing up things and trying to tie up some loose ends. But man, the torture he goes through.
Let's wrap it up with their happily ever after.
They finally are together. Yay. She has answers. She has closure, which I think is incredible for her, for his parents, and all of his family. She is thriving. Her mason jar is thriving. I love that Jimmy and Randall still come in.
Yes.
And her and Cole get married and they have 2 children. And I love that she doesn't do the birthday list. She finishes that, completes that by Jamie's birthday, but she has this wall in her office of all the memories that they're making, and I love that she prints those off and puts those up. Me too. They just seem so happy, and I'm so thankful that after a time of grieving and tragedy that her character is able to go on and find her forever and find her family, and it was such a beautiful story. I loved it. It made me so happy.
I loved it too. And happy birthday, friend.
Happy
3 years.
Birthday. 3 years. It's just been a wild ride.
It has.
The best time. That wraps up our birthday episode, and that is the conclusion of our discussion of the birthday list. We hope you enjoyed this episode and want to continue the discussion with us. You can hit us up on our Instagram at Postbook Depression Podcast, or you can message us on Facebook at Postbook Depression Discussion Group. You can also email us at postbookdepressionpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, keep reading.